Good evening. Tycoon Li Ka-shing is set to splurge about $120 billion on British mobile phone giant O2. It would be the biggest telecom deal he has made so far, ATV's Edna Dare reports.
Li Ka-shing is making another big business move just a fortnight after announcing an overhaul of his empire and re-registering two new flagship companies outside Hong Kong. His Hutchison Whampoa confirmed today it's seeking to buy British mobile phone operator O2 for more than 119 billion Hong Kong dollars. They've already agreed on the initial price of more than $107 billion in cash, and another installment of more than $11 billion will be paid further down the road. The timing and amounts of these payments will depend on the actual cash flows of the combined businesses, Hutchison told the local stock exchange in a statement. Shares in the company surged by 3% on the news, closing at $101.20 today. The deal has added to the buzz that the city's richest man may be trying to pull his business interests out of Hong Kong and the mainland, although he has repeatedly denied it. There's also speculation that the tycoon is no longer the darling of China's leaders, recent mainland media reports suggesting it won't matter all that much if he does business elsewhere. If the deal goes all the way through, Li will run the UK's biggest mobile phone operator. Hutchison already operates phone services in the UK, Italy, Sweden, Denmark, Austria and Ireland through its Three Group Europe, which has nearly 27 million customers.
An elderly man who returned from a visit to the mainland has been confirmed as the city's second imported human case of H7N9 bird flu. ATV's Alison Chan reports.
At a news briefing this evening, health officials said a 79-year-old man tested positive for the H7N9 bird flu virus. It's the second imported human case this flu season. The man didn't eat any chicken when he was in Guangdong earlier this month, but he visited a wet market which sold live poultry.
The important thing is local citizens should avoid going to live poultry market in the affected area, and if they are unwell, they should put on a mask.
The man is in stable condition in Princess Margaret Hospital. Two relatives who had close contacts with him have not shown any signs of flu. Last month, a woman who ate chicken during a visit to Shenzhen was diagnosed with the H7N9 virus. Meanwhile, a 2-year-old boy is in critical condition after contracting influenza A. He's in an intensive care unit in Prince of Wales Hospital. Alison Chan, ATV News.
Health Minister Ko Wing-man is concerned whether public hospitals can cope with the growing number of flu patients this winter. ATV's Winner Wong reports.
With Hong Kong in the peak winter season for influenza, public hospitals are bracing for an influx of patients. According to the health minister, this year's numbers are comparable with those of last year in 2012, in which an exceptionally high number of flu patients showed serious symptoms. During those 2 years, half of the 200 to 300 patients admitted to intensive care units died of seasonal flu. 3 weeks into this year's peak flu season, around 80 severely ill patients have been put under intensive care, and nearly half have died, most of them infected by the H3N2 strain.
I'm more concerned about the capacity of the public hospital, say in the A&E department, as well as in the intensive care unit. So we'll be liaising with the hospital authority to make sure that they have the measures in hand to handle the situation.
Adding to concerns this year, the vaccine being used locally targets an H3N2 strain that is different from the one going around. But the health minister says it's still better than nothing.
We also advise people to take the influenza vaccine, although the protection rate of the combination that we use this year is apparently lower than past years. Experts were of the opinion that having the vaccination is still better than not.
Winner Wong, ATV News.
Vice President Li Yuanchao has declared that the best is yet to come in the struggle against the civil disobedience movement in Hong Kong. ATV's Emily Siu reports.
An article posted online by the web portal Hong Kong Macau News has raised eyebrows by quoting Vice President Li Yuanchao on last year's Occupy protests. It quoted Li as declaring recently that the anti-Occupy struggle is not over yet and the best is yet to come. The vice president went on to say that the brains behind the civil disobedience campaign have not reached their goals yet. But he praised the central and SAR governments, along with supporters of the Love China, Love Hong Kong slogan, for having achieved victory at this stage. Li also warned everyone to keep in mind how protesters and young people had behaved during the road blockades and urged all sides to oppose their campaign. Last year's chaos and lawlessness have reignited the debate on national security laws for Hong Kong. On the airwaves today, University of Hong Kong law professor Johannes Chan joined a growing chorus of rejection for a proposal by Stanley a local deputy to China's parliament, to have the mainland apply its own national security legislation to the SAR. The legal experts slammed the idea as unconstitutional and reckless, as Article 23 of the Basic Law already provides for Hong Kong itself to introduce such legislation. Chan said the reason why there is such a clause is because Hong Kong people don't want China to apply its laws here directly. On another radio show, pro-establishment lawmaker Lam Tai-fai accused the government of not trying hard enough to forge a consensus with the opposition camp on political reform. I don't see the government really getting in touch with the pan-democrats, said Lam. When they do promotions in the community, they tend to focus on consulting groups that are friendlier with the government.
Lawmakers have hit out after a committee looking into standard working hours set up another group to study what it calls a complicated issue. Here's Winner Wong.
It's the 10th time that the Standard Working Hours Committee has met, but there's still nothing concrete on the way forward. According to Committee Chairman Leung Che-hung, today's meeting concluded that legislation is needed for working hours, but how to go about it will be left to a new task force to be set up. Leung denied that the committee has been dragging its feet, arguing that the issue is complicated. Public feedback suggests that it's not just employers who are hesitant. Employees themselves are worried their income will be reduced if their working hours are limited, he noted. A final report will be handed to the government in March next year. But lawmakers find this unacceptable.
So it's study after study and study after study, and never, there's any sincerity in having working hour regulation. And so we are really very angry that the fact that Hong Kong workers as longest working hours in the world, and that there can never still yet any possibility of a work-life balance for the workers in Hong Kong.
The veteran union has suggested the government is deliberately delaying the issue for the next administration, with LegCo elections due next year and the chief executive poll after that. Federation of Trade Unions legislator Chan Yun-han is also unhappy about the lack of progress. The government should refer to nearby areas because even China has minimum wage and standard working hour laws, she said. Union leaders are accusing Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying of failing to deliver his election manifesto pledge to sort out the issue. Winner Wong, ATV News.
Thailand's former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra has suffered a double blow. She's been banned from politics for 5 years and faces trial over a controversial rice subsidy scheme. ATV's Arthur Okiola reports.
The result came as no surprise to many as Thailand's National Legislative Assembly voted overwhelmingly to impeach former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra and ban her from politics for 5 years. Thailand's first woman premier was called to account for her role in a controversial rice subsidy scheme. Farmers who are among her most fervent supporters sold their rice to the government at higher than market prices. But this resulted in massive stockpiles in warehouses. Almost 4 million tons of grain were spoilt, costing the government $20 billion. Yingluck was accused of mismanaging the scheme. But she disputed the accusations, saying the program had in fact improved the economy and raised the standard of living for Thailand's rural poor. Her supporters had expected the result and accused the military-appointed lawmakers of being biased in the pursuit of their vendetta against Yingluck and her family. It was the second blow to the former leader today. Earlier, the Attorney General announced Yingluck will face a criminal charge in connection with the rice program. She could be jailed for up to 10 years and found guilty of negligence of duty. Today's developments are expected to increase tension in the divided country. Yingluck's mainly rural backers believe she's being persecuted by the military and the middle class to stop her family from returning to power. Her opponents have also been targeting her brother, Thaksin, a former prime minister himself now living in exile. Last year, Thailand was plagued by months of street protests between supporters and opponents of the premier. The unrest subsided after she was removed as prime minister for abuse of power in May last year. Days later, the military seized power, and Thailand has been under martial law ever since. Arthur Ricchiola, ATV News.
Saudi Arabia's new King Salman says he'll maintain the energy and foreign policies of his predecessor, Abdullah. Salman also moved quickly to appoint younger relatives as heirs so that there'll be no problems of succession in the world's largest oil producer. Saudis gathered at a mosque in Riyadh for a funeral of Abdullah, who died at the age of 90. He's being remembered as a cautious reformer, but Saudi women believe he could have done more to improve their status. Sports now, starting with football. Defending champions Japan have been dumped out of the Asian Cup after losing on penalties to the United Arab Emirates. Iraq are also through to the semi-finals after beating neighbours Iran.